And welcome everybody back to the bunker. Welcome once again to season 3. Today we have a very special episode, and I have some special guests with me. I have with me, as always, Beth, of course. But we have two special guests, and we're going to be talking about the UAP report that was just released, and our thoughts on that. We're going to go through that a little bit, give our thoughts on it, and then we're going to get to some extra special stuff after that. So with me tonight is our friend of the show, fellow researcher from Normal Paranormal. We have Justin Bamforth with us.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome, Justin. Thanks for coming on. I know you had a late night last night on another radio show, so thanks for jumping right back in the saddle with us.
Yeah, always happy to be in the safe zone known as the bunker.
Exactly. And I figured who better to have with us if we're going to be talking about UFOs, aliens, and government quote-unquote disclosure than Justin. But also we have our good friend Jamie is also with us.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me. Excited to get into it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Jamie. I know everybody's got a million things going on, but let's just get right into it. I wanted to actually start with, before we get to the report itself, there was of course the New York Times article that kind of blew the lid off of this whole thing. And then there were several follow-up articles written, following that up. And I came across one that was in Popular Mechanics. And it's one of the major things that primarily jumped out at me real early on. And this was back in June, before the report even came out. This article was written. One of the things that was mentioned was that, quote, intelligence officials believe, quote, that at least some of the aerial phenomena could have been experimental technology from a rival power, most likely Russia or China, taken from the Times. So that was one thing initially that really jumped out at me and kind of bothered me a little bit because we can see our government getting into this Cold War kind of mentality with China especially, but also with Russia, which has been ongoing on and off for decades at this point. And what was your guys' takes on that?
I mean, it's really hard to say, right? Like, because right now we can't conclusively identify what it is, and it seems like we can't really even rule out what it isn't, right? It seems to be like this gray territory with because of all the secrecy with world powers and all that. It's really hard to determine if it is something human or if it's something other. The good thing about what's going on right now is that at least the discussions are taking place, right? When before there were no discussions at all, at least in the public eye. All of this was taboo. It was, there were stigmas associated with it, and you couldn't even get through like a normal news segment without hearing the X-Files music or some joke. So I think right now, what is happening with all of the lawmakers and people in the intelligence community, they're talking about this, right? And they're actually taking this seriously. So I think it's a good step. It's a step in the right direction,
Yeah, that is very true. Very true. Have any thoughts on that, Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to think about. It's like, just in general with this whole thing, it's like you can find one day, well, in the same day, in the same minute even, you can find an article on the internet that says chocolate will kill you, and then you can find an article that says chocolate will save your life. So, right? So it's like, yeah. I don't know. I mean, even in the articles that we're going to discuss tonight, it's interesting. Like, one article talks about, let's see if I can find it real quick. One article talks about like, oh, it's possible that, or it's rumored that Russia and China are experimenting with hypersonic technology. And then in the other article, it says both Russia and China are known to be experimenting with hypersonic technology. So, which is it? Which, right? It is, yeah. Or it is. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's weird. There's like, I'm trying to figure out how to answer these questions without answering the whole thing. So I mean, I guess that's just my first take is that like I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it is, but you know, who knows?
Well, you know what? Jimmy brings up an interesting point because it seems like things, we hear all these conflicting reports and we hear all these, different perspectives and all that. And I'm right there with you. Like, what we do know is that world powers have been studying this phenomenon for a very long time. China has its own program, Russia has its own program. Even when it was the Soviet Union, they had their own program. And the US has their own program and has had their own program for quite some time. Even going beyond the UFO subject or the UAP subject, as it's now referred to. But
Yeah.
they had a very large psychic studies program. And, one could argue that's still going on today in each one of these, locations. So I think they're kind of hesitant to share any data because they're trying to weaponize it. They're trying to use this to their advantage because, well, what's the age old saying, right? Like the country that holds the most technology
Wins.
controls the entire world. So it doesn't surprise me that there are these suspicions, but wouldn't it be interesting if it was nobody? Um, and I think that's kind of what we're going to try to look at today too. Is what if there is something to this? What are the implications of that, and where do we go from here? Right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think we're sort of, uh, unfortunately, being the general public, we're sort of at the mercy of both the government that seems to be holding all the cards, and if anything is known, if any objects are held, if any technology is known or discovered, they're not just going to share it with all of us because of what the reasons that you just explained. But we're also at the mercy of the media as well. And one thing I couldn't help but noticing just in the last few years, because we talk about Operation Mockingbird quite a bit, probably a lot more than you know most people in the world. But one thing I did notice is that there are a tremendous number of ex-intelligence agents that are now directly working, on they're on the staff of like CNN, different news agencies, and it just when you hear the number of unnamed sources in all these news reports, which I know drives you nuts as well, Justin. That drives me crazy. Um, but I just can't help thinking that like how much of this stuff is really just being fed to us, and they're quote unquote leaking allegedly, but they're releasing exactly what they want to release, and there could very well be that none of the stuff is being leaked, and this is kind of a controlled sort of slow disclosure in a way, and that they and if that's the case, are they preparing us for something? Um, but I just couldn't help noticing just the number of like ex CIA and FBI guys are now like working at CNN and like NBC and like all over the news. So it always makes me wonder just how much of these unnamed sources are, are they, how many of them are leaks or how many of them are there? It's just controlled sort of, you know, control the narrative because we can't forget that, the primary mandate of the CIA is, the controlling of information. So,
Right, and also kind of like keeping tabs on what the rivals have access to, right? Like, I mean, let's kind of like flip the tables for a little bit. We know that during the Cold War, there were Soviet intelligence agents that were known to infiltrate UFO groups and even influence contactees. Um, and why they do this? Well, they did this in order to gain access to our military secrets and technology and create confusion within the US government itself, because they had their own paranormal programs. So, I always wondered if maybe the US, with all of their disinfo agents, as we know, the likes of like Richard Doty and some of the other, people who have not been revealed yet, they were also feeding information to the UFO groups. And I wonder if that was to kind of throw off the rivals, right? to kind of give them an indication that something was going on, but maybe it was this, maybe it was that. What better way to keep human technology secret than to make people believe that it's otherworldly technology? I mean, I've always wondered that. It's just it's just a thought.
Yeah, I've wondered that as well. One interesting quote that I did see, though, this is in the same article from Popular Mechanics. In March, John Radcliffe, who served as the Director of National Intelligence Community from May 2020 to January 2021, told Fox News that the Pentagon is sitting on, quote, lots of reports, unquote, that include sightings of objects that, quote, frankly engage in actions that are difficult to explain, end quote. The article goes on. It says the objects reportedly made movements that are hard to replicate, that we don't have the technology for. We're traveling at speeds that exceed the sound barrier without a sonic boom. In short, Radcliffe says, things that we are observing that are difficult to explain. So, kind of right there, he's saying that this is super inexplicable, and keeping in mind the extent that our military is funded, and we're all over the world, right? We have military bases everywhere. Our government spends on our military 10 times. No, I'm sorry. They spend more than the next 10 countries combined. And most of those are allies, by the way. So the thought that some other military has taken some giant leap ahead of us is kind of hard to believe if you think about that part of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's so easy to kind of like think that another country could be possessing this tech or could be in possession of this technology, right? And I'm sure that our government would like to believe that because that would be the easy explanation.
Mm-hmm.
But you bring up an interesting point, right? Like with all the money that we spend on this, all the intelligence that we have on this, I find it very hard to believe that that they're not already aware of this. I mean, or maybe that's the more disturbing aspect, right? Like to come to conclusion that it's not another government's technology, and maybe that's what they're truly wrestling with. You know, it's so easy to kind of like side with the conspiracy theorists and think like, oh, the U.S. government is hiding all this technology. They know the secrets and all that. Well, what if they don't know? What if they're just like us? I mean, and what if this is an opportunity for them to kind of come clean and ask the public's help and input? You know,
Yeah.
one thing I'll never forget is when Lou Elizondo spoke to us at the MUFON Symposium in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. This was, I think it was the year after the original New York Times article broke. And he told us in the audience, he said, look, you guys were right, and essentially keep doing what you're doing. I mean, that kind of told me that they are going to need our help just as much as we're going to need their help. And, there might come a point in time where civilian organizations and researchers are going to have to work hand in hand with the government and kind of like share information, because there's a lot of really good groups out there. MUFON is one, API, the Aerial Phenomena Investigations Team. You have the National UFO Reporting Center out in, I think, Tacoma, Washington. You had, at one point, the Bigelow Group, that was looking at this when they were working out at Skinwalker Ranch. There's a lot of separate organizations that have done really good research into this, but I don't think the government has kind of tapped into that. And why would they? Because that at the time that would be considered like embarrassing.
Yeah.
One thing I will say is that in my limited dealings with interacting with folks in the intelligence community, is that they don't like to admit or be embarrassed that they're wrong or that they don't know. And here they are presenting this information. Now, I'm not trying to defend them, but I just find it very interesting because this information that they've released to the public now does not really portray the government in a positive light. It portrays them, if anything, in a very lack of control um, uh, position, right? So of course they're going to try to
Yeah.
spin it in a way that doesn't seem like that. Not to mention that the fact that they've been keeping a lot of this secret from the American public. Um, isn't that like illegal? Like to some extent. Like, can a lot of these guys go to prison because of that? They're going to want to protect their own butts. Um, and they don't want that to happen. And I can't blame them. So I think there needs to be a little bit of patience, a little bit of understanding on both sides. But again, what do I know?
Yeah, that certainly is like a big part of it with this coming out. And I think that I've heard of a lot of other researchers basically say the same thing. Like the Pentagon is essentially in like damage control mode because this stuff came out. It doesn't seem like to me they wanted it to come out the way it did and when it did. And it seems like since then they're sort of doing damage control ever since this came out. And I know that they were going at Elizondo pretty hard because he need to get a lawyer, and he was kind of like potentially could have been in some hot water for like a little bit there, couldn't he?
I didn't hear about the lawyer aspect, but I know that there were attempts to discredit him. There were official spokespeople who kind of denied that he was even part of the program, right? And that created that rift between him and John Greenwald, right? And they went back and forth trying to prove and that he was actually part of the program and all that. But yet it was like a misunderstanding on part of the Pentagon, wasn't it? Um, but that's the thing, right? Like a lot of these organizations, the people involved only have limited access to certain parts, right? So of course this is going to happen. We see it all the time, right? With compartmentalization, and a lot of the subcontracted groups don't know what the other subcontracted groups are doing, who don't know what another group is doing, and they're all part of the same project. That what better way to keep a secret than to do that? And I can't help but think that maybe that also exists within these government programs like ATIP or ALSAP. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know. What do you make of it, Jamie? I mean, I know that you're kind of like, you've been kind of like keeping an eye on this. I mean, what is your takeaway from all this? I know sometimes it frustrates you, and I hear it in our discussions, but I mean, what are your thoughts?
I think the government does know what it is. I do think that there is a, like Mike was saying, how that they're doing a little bit of damage control. That I don't know. I keep going back and forth on it. Like I want to agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that like they weren't planning on this, and now they're trying to figure it out. Like, but I don't know. I just I'm trying to I keep going back and forth on it. Just like I went back and forth with the coronavirus, but now I'm vaccinated. But of course, at first I wasn't.
I know.
But now I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, But so I keep going back and forth on this, and I'm, because it's a topic that's so near and dear to my heart. Of course, I'm excited about all this stuff that's happening and all, but I'm also trying to take a step back and, I don't know, I guess get my head out of the weeds on the whole thing and just look at it from an overall perspective, and just be like, what is going on here? I don't trust. I mean, understatement. I don't trust the government, but I don't trust this whole thing. I don't trust any of it. Like from the beginning, I was like, when To the Stars Academy came out, I was all excited and, oh my God, they made this thing. And now I don't believe anything they said. I don't trust them now. I think they're disinformation agents. I don't. Which, by the way, To the Stars Academy was a record label, and they just kept the name. It was To the Stars, and now it's To the Stars Academy. But it's part of the story, and I do think that it's exciting. But why? And I think they know. They've been studying this for a long time, and it's just I'm trying to look at it from lately now. But from the beginning, I was very excited. Now I'm like, come on! I'm trying to figure out what is the angle here. Why are they saying this stuff now all of a sudden? It's something that's been there the entire time. The entire time. It's not anything new. In fact, it's been around before we were here. So why all of a sudden now, just because those videos were leaked, I don't know if that wasn't on purpose either. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't like somebody, look, if somebody, I just started reading an article in Rolling Stone about some guy who, some guy, I can't believe this is insane. I think it has a sad ending, but some guy who worked at an airport, he's totally trusted, he's part of the staff, he stole a freaking airplane. They're calling it Grand Theft Airplane, which is kind of funny, but I think it's got a sad ending, but I didn't get that far yet. But, it's just like, that guy's been there the whole time, and they trusted him, and it's the last thing that you would expect. There was a guy that worked at like the luggage stuff, and he worked on the tarmac and everything, and then he just decided one day to steal the airplane. Now, I haven't finished the article, so I don't know the whole story behind it. But where am I going? Like this, I just feel like this stuff has been here the whole time. This is not anything new. Oh, okay. Now I got my point. My point being that was a renegade. That was a renegade thing, right? Some guy who would never. He's very trusted. He's never done anything wrong for the airport. In fact, where I'm at in the article is talking about his upbringing and everything, and like he was an athlete and just well loved and a little goofy, but like overall, like not anyone that ever did anything bad. He was involved with the church. He went to college and he joined this like evangelical group, and that's where he met his wife. And it's all a very sweet story. But then one day he just decides to steal an airplane. Now, right now, here's the thing though. That's what my point being. It's not these videos were not leaked in that manner. Somebody didn't decide to dig a tunnel under the Pentagon or somehow pretend he was a caterer, and then one day it like somehow managed to like scope the Pentagon, and then one day came out with these tapes and released them to the internet, and now they're like, oh my God, no. Christopher Mellon was the one responsible for getting the videos. And so, you know what I'm saying? I think this is a plan. I think this whole thing is pre-planned, and it's leading us into. I think they're controlling the narrative too. I don't think it's totally ambiguous. Like I think there's a plan behind this. I don't know if we'll see it in our lifetime, maybe, but I think that this is more about mainly because we have never been attacked by UFOs. We've never been attacked by them, and immediately, the first thing, it's a threat. Also, we take Roswell, okay? Roswell, day one, it's a flying saucer. The Army has captured a flying saucer. 5 hours later, oh no, it's a weather balloon. That's 1947. Fast forward to 2004, I think, or 2007. Oh no, or 1997. And they say, you know what? We were wrong. We told you it was a weather balloon. The truth is, it was a weather balloon. Okay? Now, now we fast forward to 2021, where they put out this BS report, and what do they list in there? A freaking weather balloon. Like, come on. Like, come on, man. Come on.
They can't get off the weather balloon. They just can't.
Yeah. Now they didn't say, it says deflating balloon, okay? But still, a balloon, not a not a drone, not some crazy guy made a rocket or whatever. No, there's still... I just think that's hilarious that in this report, it doesn't say anything definitive. They don't even mention extraterrestrial outer space. They don't even mention that. But the one thing that they think they identify, they say a balloon. I think that's also them just being like, ha. I think they're teasing us. So
that totally could be, yeah.
I have some.
Go ahead, Beth, because I'll just keep talking.
No, you're fine. I just was thinking about something. So if this is all real and they have physical proof, I don't know, because I know there has been some talk about, are they paranormal? Are they the aliens part of the spirit realm? Are they, ancestors that's gone before us, like Bigfoot and everything else? If they have physical proof that they can give to us, then it's not paranormal. They have proof. So that's why I don't know what to believe either, because then it's not connected. They're not paranormal if there's real physical proof that they can show us and prove to us. So I don't know. I'm not sure. Then it's not really connected because I know sometimes we were I forget I don't know if it was me and you, Mike, but we were talking about how are they spirit from the spirit world from another dimension, that are communicating with us? Then that's not that theory. It's if they have, like I said, if physical proof, then it's not paranormal.
Yeah, but it could also realistically be all those things. We may be seeing
Yeah.
multiple different phenomena that we
All
just
right.
can't really tell the difference between them yet, because I don't know, it does seem to be.
Well, then they should be able to prove everything else in the spirit realm and paranormal. Then
Yeah, but that's
I'm just saying.
still out of
Yeah.
reach,
So
as we know. You know
so
what I mean?
yeah, it
So
is frustrating though. I can feel
yeah,
your frustration, Jamie, because it's like, you don't know now. Now it's like, okay, all right, then show us the proof or don't. Like stop. And if they have it, why aren't they? They really haven't given us anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah. I think they do though. I know that Jacques Vallée. I know that he has samples of things that has tested. I know that
Yeah.
to the Stars Academy has admitted that they've been, they have samples of things too, and we've seen pictures that may or may not be what it is because you can't trust anything now. Like anybody can make anything, and like I think Justin had said, if it's fake. How did he say it? Like if it's too blurry. If it's blurry, people say it's not real. If it's too 4K HD, people say it's fake. So,
Yeah.
so like
Yeah.
so you're holding it in your hand, But I've been watching this video series. I think it was recorded in the early 2000s. It's called like the Citizen Hearing on UFOs, and it's every Friday they release a new segment from this week-long hearing where people in the field, and all people that we know, and all are being in front of this panel of congressmen from multiple states and women from multiple states, and they talk about different incidents, and it's fascinating. I love it. Some of it's an hour long, some of it's 2 hours long. Comes out every Friday. I think it's great. I'm so disappointed that only like under 10,000 people are watching this every week, which I'm really disappointed. The good thing is it lives on the internet now and it'll be there forever. So, but I think like this whole thing. What the last thing I've been watching is Roswell in part 1 and part 2, and there's 2 parts, and they've been talking about how Colonel Marcel, whatever Marcel, the guy who was responsible for going to Brazil, his farm, and like when the thing crashed, he called them, and then they went to see what it is, and he took a bunch of samples of it and took it to his house, and he set it up on the floor, and he woke his family up, and he asked them to look at the stuff. And
yeah.
when they're telling the story, like that, thanks Justin, Jesse Marcel, yes, and Mac Brazel, the owner of the farm.
Yep.
It's so in this hearing too. There also has Jesse Marcel's son, who's an older man, and then his son and daughter, and they all tell the whole story. And it's fascinating, and you can just tell they're not making it up. Like they're not making it up. So that even back then in 1947, the government has stowed away somewhere from some black government somewhere. We have samples of this stuff. I think that they don't know what it is. I think they know what it is, meaning it's something that they don't know what it is. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I think that's where the part of we don't know where it is comes from. They're like, they do have it, and they do know where it comes from, but they don't know how. We cannot, even to this day, like we can't defend against it, even though it's never attacked us. But so therefore, they don't know what to do. So they're not going to come out and say, well, I guess they are coming out and saying, now they are, they're coming out and saying like, we don't know what it is, but obviously it's a threat,
Yeah, I just think about the number of reports that I've looked at from, including Roswell, from all through the 1950s, but going back into the 1800s, people were seeing airships all over the place. And so even before we were flying, somebody was flying something in the air. But of all the sightings, and I mean, thousands upon thousands of them, and, there's not been one single report about any unidentified flying object attacking any aircraft, any military base, anywhere. And you would think if they were aggressive and they wanted to, if they were a military threat, they would definitely attack us because, like I said, we have like over 100 military bases all over the place. We have, soldiers everywhere. But yet there may have been near misses, you could say, but with aircraft, but there haven't been any attacks, no planes have been shot down with laser beams. There's a handful of reports of UFOs over nuclear installations, and switching off their power and their capability to control the nukes. That there's a couple of reports of that, right? Well, more than a couple, but
Yeah.
what you could just as easily say is a peaceful gesture.
Yeah.
But just so the threat narrative is just kind of silly, because if it's just with thousands upon thousands of reports going back to the beginning of time, I mean, it's never acted as a threat.
We'd be dead. If they were going to attack us, we'd be dead. What are they waiting for? Are they waiting for us to, our technology to finally develop to the point where we can identify them? And then they're like, yep, you got us. Boom, you're dead. Like, is that what they're waiting for? It would have happened already. It would have happened already. So,
100%.
Or maybe we're going to destroy ourselves.
Yeah, and I think that's what they're afraid of, because, if you, some of the reports about it, about like them shutting down the nuclear facilities, is because they don't want weapons in space, which is what, of course, we're trying to do, because we've been attacked from space. So but when we launch like atomic bombs, what is that doing to other dimensions? What is that doing to other worlds? Other universes? What is that doing? So I think that's what they're watching over us to say, like, what are you doing? Don't. I think they're just being kind of like kind of like crossing guards, I guess, in a way, or chaperones. Like, they're just watching over us just to make sure, because they know it's inevitable. I mean, the whole AI thing, like, come on, man, we're just doing it. We're I feel like we are closing in on our demise of human civilization, and I think that's why smart people, think what you think about them, but smart people like Elon Musk, I think that's why they're trying to colonize Mars, because they see it coming. So that's what's going to happen. Like, the Earth is going to, we're going to kill it. I think that's part of it.
Yeah. There's something you guys, were talking about just a moment ago, right? Is this notion of, is it a threat or is it not a threat, right? And I think that's kind of been like a hot button debate, between those in the UFO field for quite some time, right? Some have argued that that they have harmed us. You look at mutilations, abductions, close encounter cases with ill effects, like the Cash Landrum case, Rendlesham. But then there are some who argue that they're here to help us, right? And that they already have. There are instances of healing after close encounters, transformed thinking that helps the planet. An example of that, the Ruwa, Zimbabwe case, where the occupants warned the school children about what we're doing to the planet, right? So there's two sides of this coin. But I think what's really interesting about this is, again, I think it's playing off of our own preconceived notions. I mean, when you look at this phenomenon as a whole, it's been around for a very long time, all of human history. But there's this aspect to it, this trickster element, which different cultures have referred to in different contexts. And we can't overlook that aspect, right? Because that's a very real possibility. And I think, like, yes, you have, some people like Dr. Stephen Greer, right, who recently produced a documentary in response to this called The Cosmic Hoax, an expose. And in his description on YouTube, it says that this is his answer to the current government media disinformation campaign, promoting three big lies. One, we do not know what these UAPs, UFOs are. We do. Two, humans cannot make craft that they can maneuver like UFOs. We can, and we do. Three, the UFOs are a threat. They are not. Well, to be quite honest, I'm just quite tired of all the polarization on every topic and everything nowadays. Like, why must it always be so black and white, right and wrong, this way and that way? I mean, are we so self-centered as human beings to think that this phenomenon revolves around humanity? Right. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. Or maybe it just exists for reasons that we will never know. What's the harm in just taking a neutral perspective, right? Until we find some definitive answers. Because maybe the seemingly obvious answers are merely just a trick put on by the phenomenon itself. Maybe it is playing into our fears and our expectations. We know based on our research and our investigations, that this is a very deceptive phenomenon. It will flip flop. It will do things, different things to different people involved. We know that things are not as they seem. You two, Michael and Beth, you've been working on a lot of paranormal cases. You see this every day, right?
Yeah.
So to
Yeah.
take any stance whatsoever, I think, in my opinion, is quite naive, right? There's always going to be this split, that those who consider the visitors a threat and those that consider them friends. But I think it might be a better approach if we just look at it for what it is and kind of put our preconceived notions aside. And I think even with the public's reaction to this, they're expecting this to be disclosure with a capital D, when in fact this might be more of disclosure with a lowercase d. But how does the government admit to the public something that they cannot control, when the whole point of government is to establish law and order and protect the people, right? So this kind of throws a real tough wrench into things. But I think as civilians, we need to just reserve our judgments until we have more information, and especially facts, which we don't have much of in this case.
Nice. Well said, Justin.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. And I want to actually make this comment, touch on this, piggyback on some of what you were saying before, Jamie, and myself as well. I originally wanted to have Mark Pilkington on the show with us to talk about this matter. And some of you may not be aware, Mark is the individual that wrote Mirage Men, which is the book about the disinformation campaign featuring the individual you mentioned before, Justin, Richard Doty. But so we were emailing back and forth, and he had some insightful things in his email, and so he said he wasn't prepared to come on the show, and he wanted to really prepare, and he's super busy. But I told him that I'd like to read his comments on this episode, and he said absolutely, and actually added a little postscript here. So I'm just going to read his comments, and it touches on some of the stuff that we have just been saying. He says, quote, "For what it's worth, I don't believe the current crop of videos point to anything other than misidentifications that have been powerfully amplified by people with their own agendas to push, some commercial, some faith-based. My sense is that the Pentagon are in damage limitation mode, and the forthcoming report is, as it always is, about public relations and image management rather than UFOs. I do plan on writing something more broadly on the subject soon. Very best wishes, Mark." So I told him that I was going to read this comment, and so he added to that. He said, feel free to use my microstatement. I'd add that this current flap is at the center of a Venn diagram incorporating the American military entertainment complex, ever-evolving emergent millenarian beliefs, and a divided and paranoid nation at war with itself. It's no surprise that Jim Watkins, one of the original drivers of the QAnon conspiracy, is now getting into the UFO field. Do let me know when the podcast happens. Best, Mark. So I just thought it was kind of interesting that he had some of the same comments, same thoughts on this that I had, and he's coming from a place of government disinformation, and so he maybe jaded a little bit. He may have that one-sided point of view that you were just talking about, Justin, but coming from him, I really don't blame his take on it. It's super interesting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Mark Pilkington is a great guy, and he's got a lot of great insight. He talked with Richard Doty, one of these disinformation agents, about that whole case. Mark comes at this with a great perspective. I don't always agree with him 100% on everything, but I think he has a lot to add to this, because yes, there is an aspect to the UFO phenomenon that has been used in a very manipulative way to spin certain agendas. There's no denying that. Like we kind of talked about, earlier in the program. There could be an element to this for sure. It's really hard to say, until we have more information. We can only speculate, and me, I really hate to speculate with such limited information, but that's all we have, right? We have
Yeah.
this UAP report, this public report, which was only a few pages long. And then you have the classified report, right, which was like 150 pages long.
Yeah.
We may not see the full, classified version. Obviously we won't. But Jamie had mentioned this individual, Chris Mellon, right?
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you brought him up because, he knows a lot about this. And one of the things that he had tweeted out a while back was he said that there are key takeaways of the UAP UFO report reading between the lines. And he said, one, it isn't us. Two, we don't understand the revolutionary technology we are observing in some cases. And three, we don't think it is Russia or China. Time to get to work, end quote. So I think that's really interesting. And then he had another tweet that he put out. He said, quote, note the clear disconnect between the comments of the unclassified UFO UAP report and the comments of those who have reviewed the classified data. Example, Obama, Norquist, Ratcliffe, Brennan, Representative Carson, etc. Clearly, we are seeing tech beyond our capabilities or understanding, end quote. He knows something. There's no denying that. I think he's doing a little bit of a dance, right? To kind of like share some of that stuff in a legal way without getting himself in trouble. Mike, you had sent out an email to Jamie and I with an attachment on that, which was the Tic Tac UFO Executive Report. And I believe that came from a media outlet, a media source in Las Vegas, I believe. And why don't you share with the audience some of that stuff, if you want?
Yeah, please do. I read that. I have notes all over this thing.
Yeah, either one of you. I mean, what are your takeaways with that? Because that has some more rich information, I think, that goes beyond what came forward with the public report.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, probably most of my listeners have heard the story of the Tic Tac and Commander David Fravor and the UAP, UFO, however you want to refer to it, that they witnessed off the coast of California. But if you really dig into this, it really touches on all of the things that sort of proves that if it isn't us and our massively bloated military spending, I find it more believable that it's something off-world than another country if we don't know about it. If it's another country, we 100% would have known about it. And there's no country on this planet, I don't think, that would have technology that we would not already have with our multiple intelligence communities, massive military that's everywhere, our vastly superior Air Force, Navy. I mean, it's crazy to think that some other military on Earth can dupe us and dupe extremely talented and experienced pilots like this thing did. The key assessments are pretty interesting. The anomalous, they call it the anomalous aerial vehicle, was no known aircraft or air vehicle currently in the inventory of the United States or any foreign nation. So right there, they just come out and say it. It's not us, and it's no other country on Earth. The AAV exhibited advanced low observable characteristics at multiple radar bands, rendering U.S.-based radar engagement capabilities ineffective. I'm going to read that again.
Yeah.
The AAV exhibited advanced low observable characteristics at multiple radar bands, rendering U.S.-based radar engagement capabilities ineffective. The AAV exhibited advanced aerodynamic performance with no visible control surfaces and no visible means to generate lift. The AAV exhibited advanced propulsion capability by demonstrating the ability to remain stationary with little to no variation in altitude, transitioning to horizontal and or vertical velocities far greater than any known aerial vehicle with little to no visible signature. Now, by signature, they mean no engines, nothing visible. The AAV possibly demonstrated the ability to cloak or become invisible to the human eye or human observation. The AAV possibly demonstrated a highly advanced capability to operate undersea, completely undetectable by our most advanced sensors. Now, not only did this UFO outsmart, it was jamming our radar. Number one, that's insane. Outmaneuvering our jets, making our jets look like Tonka toys. It was at times invisible to the human eye, and is evading multiple layers of the most advanced radar that is on the planet. Some of the radar on the ship is the radar on the Princeton is capable of pinpointing like thousands of targets at the same time. Yet it couldn't get a read on this thing. They had radar aircraft in the sky as well. And I think everyone's heard the basic story that, these things, a fleet of these things were seen by the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group, which is not only just the jets, the aircraft carrier, but a cruiser, a radar ship, multiple other. It's a whole fleet of ships essentially. This is November, December 2004, Southern California region, between like Southern California and Mexico, and they had a submarine as well, and they were doing training missions to get ready to go to the Middle East, and they stopped training because they were observing these crafts right in their area of operation, right in their training area. And so they scrambled jets to go out and go check this thing out and see what the heck it was. Well, first of all, they also saw something in the water as well. It was just below the surface. They couldn't identify what that was, but they could see a disturbance in the water. So there was some kind of undersea craft in the water as well that they couldn't pinpoint. And when they went back to look, it was gone. But this Tic Tac shoots up as David Fravor's flying around observing this thing, and just, he commented that it looked like it noticed him. And then it kind of just, and again, these things went from like 60,000 feet to the ocean floor in a couple of seconds, which is insane. Hovered there for a long time. David Fravor flies, to recon this thing, and it turns on him and goes hypersonic and is out of sight in like a second. And not only did it do that, but the craft actually stopped and was waiting for him at his cap point, which is a classified set of coordinates where the training group, where the jets will rendezvous for like the next phase of the training. That's not information that's even known to everyone on the ship. And somehow this craft went hypersonic and went to this point. Like it was like, hey, look, I know you're going. And it just went there, and like before he even went there. So that's something that jumped out at me, because that's not information that even everyone on the ship knows. Not everyone in the crew knows that. There's a handful of people that know those set of coordinates. And they're transmitted, scrambled, and this thing was jamming our radar and is intercepting transmissions between the ship and this jet, is cloaking itself. That is beyond insane. Mm-hmm. What are your guys' thoughts on?
Yeah, and there's another aspect too. Like if I recall, I thought I remembered hearing an interview with Fravor at one point early on where he had mentioned that it knew those coordinates and it moved to those coordinates a split second before he thought about moving to those coordinates.
Yeah.
And, it kind of like reminds me of what Colonel John Alexander said, right? That he describes this phenomenon as a precognitive sentient being, right? Like it has the ability to know how we are going to respond, how we're going to react ahead of time, even before we know how we're going to respond and react. So, that's an aspect, right? Like that I think gets overlooked. Now, again, one could jump to the conclusion, right, that this is our technology or some other, human technology. Okay, well, possibly, but that's incredible technology, to kind of like perceive thoughts like that and respond on that. I mean, like, to me, that's a threat. I mean, that's just like, really interesting stuff. And again, going into what Lou Elizondo's five observables, right? Didn't he he talked about these five observables that he noted when making a determination of whether or not this is a UAP or UFO. Um, Let me just pull up that note I had here. Can't remember all these things off the top of my head, but here we go. He said the five basics include anti-gravity lift, sudden and instantaneous acceleration, hypersonic velocities without signatures, low observability or cloaking, which you had mentioned, transmedium travel. But I think there's one other aspect that he seldom talks about. And I think that is maybe something that has been purposely omitted from a lot of these reports. The sixth observable, biological effects brought on by the phenomenon. I wrote an article on my site about this after I had heard Elizondo give an interview, and he briefly mentioned it. There is a connection long after the experience subsides or takes place. And that can be perceived as a threat. We see it you guys deal with it as paranormal investigators. Things following you back, right? Or things attaching you, or in Beth's case, things attacking you from a psychic perspective. There's a lot of this that is underestimated, and it doesn't necessarily conclude that it is attacking us, but there are elements of this that I think have yet to be studied. Right now, this is a lot for lawmakers to unpack. The fact that this is a very real phenomenon, that's hard to process, right? Because that's a paradigm shift. And a lot of these lawmakers are very, they're, some of them are very unwilling to accept that reality. And Lou Elizondo talked about it as an explanation for why ATIP was kind of closed at that point, or why they didn't continue to receive funding, because there were some, religious aspects or things that would challenge religion. Now, as a Christian myself, who is rooted in religion and in spirituality, I have encountered that. I have talked with a lot of leaders within the Christian church about this. There have been instances where there were abductees within the congregation.
Wow.
But they're not going to talk about that because a lot of these religious leaders do not know how to approach that subject. Because again, they look at it through this black and white lens of demonic or not demonic, right? or demonic or heavenly.
Yeah.
Yet I try to remind them of, I think it's in Joshua 5, where in the Christian Bible, where, Joshua is set to attack, or to invade the town of Jericho. And he sees this individual up on the hill. And he approaches that individual and he asks them, or asks this individual, are you for us or against us? And the individual responds, neither. I'm here part of the Lord's army. He doesn't give a clear indication of whether he's for him or against him. He just says neither. I have another mission in place. And that has always set, kind of like remained with me, because what if this phenomenon operates in a similar manner, this neutral territory where it has nothing to do with us, yet we are seeing it. We are experiencing the effects of it, of its reality. But there is an unseen realm that we know nothing about. So I think for us to take this clear linear perspective, again, is very premature because we don't have all the information in front of us. And I don't think we ever will. But for the government to come out and say that, don't bet on it. That's not their job, is to say, I don't know. Their job is to get to the bottom of these things. And I think they're going to have a hell of a time trying to do it, because human history has been trying to get to the bottom of this mystery. And as you know, this is a very fascinating and very frustrating field. So Welcome to
Yeah,
the ride, everybody.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, welcome to our world, everybody.
Mm.
Yeah, so true. I like that the sixth observable, and I like the spiritual or consciousness aspect of the phenomenon, and it's something that you said, Justin. You drew the parallel to paranormal investigations and private cases that we handle. We've been on tons of them lately. They're just coming out of the woodwork lately. Um, so, like, what are your thoughts on that, Beth?
Well, I think what Justin just got done talking about. We're not supposed to be judgmental. You're supposed to be neutral. To do the spiritual work that I do, I believe in everybody and everyone. I don't. There's no one thing that I do. I'm spiritual, but I believe in everybody, and I. You're not supposed to judge. We're not supposed, and I feel like we're not supposed to have all the answers either. So
Mm.
yeah, it just there. I'm neutral, like Justin was saying. Just
Yeah, I've heard you
you're not
say.
supposed to choose sides. You're supposed to
Right.
just believe in what you believe in, because faith, you can't touch it or prove it. It's just something that you believe in. It's a feeling. So it's
Yeah, and I've heard you say to a lot of people
yeah,
about religion because
yeah,
for people to ask you what you practice, and you just kind of say,
yeah.
I don't specify anyone.
I
I,
mean,
I respect all of them
yeah,
because everyone has their point of view and their own way of looking at the world and
and
their
that's
own.
okay. Like people
Right.
drive different cars, same thing.
Yeah.
Different belief system, and that's fine. I believe we all do go to one place. I believe we are all connected. I believe in the universe. There's only one universe, but there's enough room for everybody up there.
Mm.
Yeah, and on that note, like, I know that science kind of wants to, study this phenomenon from a scientific perspective, right? And religion wants to study it from a
Mm-hmm.
religious perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and governments want to study it from a defense standpoint, right? And yet, none of these groups of people are getting together and kind of like blending their
Mm.
ideas, right?
Yes, right.
Yeah, true.
And yet, just as well as I do that this is a very multidimensional, multifaceted phenomenon. And as long as we keep it separate and contained and an individual, we're never going to realize that there's so many connections and commonalities that they all
Yeah,
share. And maybe if we approached it
right.
from kind of like a collective, a truly collective group of people offering all these opinions and all these insights and
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that, then maybe we might be in a better position to better understand some aspects of it.
Yeah, we're not getting it. We're not getting it, and or some of us are not getting it. Like
Yeah.
the group, our group that we're in, our little group here that we're all in, our round table. Like there's people that do get it, but there's also people that don't get it. A lot of people don't get it, and I think that's where we're having the problem. Like if we would just, like you said, Justin, like all different groups and face or whatever, get along and just talk about it and bring their aspect into it, I think that's when we'll get it. But I don't think that's going to happen.
It's the
Yeah,
same thing with the government. The government keeps this stuff compartmentalized. No wonder we
Yeah.
haven't figured it out. I mean, not that we would, but
Totally.
it's the same. It's the same approach. It's the same exact approach.
Yeah.
No wonder.
Yep.
Yeah,
yeah, and
that's so true.
even just playing on this one thought, like it has to be this or that. I tend to laugh when everybody jumps to this conclusion that
Yeah.
whatever it is coming from beyond the stars, and yet these videos demonstrate that these anomalous objects are coming out of and going into the water.
Yeah.
So like, again, it kind of takes our preconceived notions and our expectations, and it flips it around. Like, who's to say that this isn't coming from underneath our oceans? I mean,
Right.
consider that more than 80% of the underwater realm has been unmapped, unobserved, and unexplored, according to the National Ocean Service, part of NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. What does that
I
tell
mean,
you? And yet we're
we
we're
know.
so concerned about blasting off to other other planets, other galaxies. We haven't even figured out
Yeah.
what's here on this planet.
Yeah.
We know
Or
more about the surface of the moon than we know about the surface of our own planet under the ocean.
Yeah.
that's right. Or even, on a more disturbing thought, we can't even get to the bottom of mental illness. We don't
Yeah.
even know who
Yeah,
ourselves are, and we're going to attempt to explain who they are. Give me a break.
We're not listening either. That's another thing. We're not
yeah,
listening.
totally. Most people are walking around utterly oblivious as to what's even going on around them, much less the nature of reality in the universe. You know, it's a shame.
But you got to keep in mind the people who are getting paid to study this within government are very, a certain type of person, right? And you can't
Yeah,
fault them for it. It's just how their training,
Yeah.
has come to be. They're not going to look at it, I think, the way that we're looking at it. Every once in a while, you have people like Harry Reid who are brave enough to open up the door to just talking about this phenomenon. And I think that's a huge step. Yes, this public report, this preliminary assessment of the UAP matter, um, it's not impressive. Yes, it's a letdown to a lot of us in the field, but consider how far we've come, or at least how far the other people who are not in this field have come. I mean, that's huge.
yeah,
That's huge. And going back to, both of your point, or all of your points, like earlier, um, about this, right? Like, could this be like a distraction from other things? Could this be something that they don't really want to publicize? Well, sure. I mean, look at the timing of the release of this report. Look at the timing of the release of all the videos. You know, they come out in the midst of major news stories. This UAP report was released on a Friday, on the same day as the sentencing for the Derek Chauvin, George Floyd trial, right?
Yeah.
yep.
Most people who knew about this report coming out, they messaged me completely unaware that it had already been released. I
Hmm.
Mm.
can't blame them. I mean, this is like, this stuff, this is, if you think about it, this is an embarrassment.
Yeah,
Like what does the government have to gain from this report? That's why, yes, there could be, there could be another part to this that we're not aware of, that maybe Mark Pilkington is bringing up, and he has excellent points.
yeah.
But maybe there's something else. I don't know. Again, it's just more speculation.
Well, we'll find out when I obtain the classified version that was released to the government. I'm gonna work on that. That
Um,
I'm hoping somebody does somehow, like, the fact that we know about that, like, that it exists, that just gives me hope that somebody's gonna leak it somehow,
Yeah,
and
that's
then they will, and then we'll say, this isn't real.
You're probably right.
There'll be somebody else saying something. Most people want to see in black or white, and it's not, and they're not reading between the lines, and that's the problem.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I like about this group of people and the things that we talk about, because we consider all possibilities, and we consider trusting everything. We consider not trusting anything. We consider, you know, the nuts and bolts aspect of it. We consider the psychic aspect of it and the spiritual aspect of it, and and that I think will lead us into our last topic here, which is something that Beth experienced recently, that I think is super important to put into this soup of information that we have about all of this phenomenon. And it's an approach that many of the most greatest researchers have considered being a very important part of this, and that's talking to the experiencers, talking to the abductees, getting their stories, trying to figure out, is this thing they're experiencing legitimate? What are the implications of that? How many people are experiencing this kind of thing? And as more of this comes out, more people are coming forward, and we're seeing in the last couple of decades, abductees are probably far more frequent than we first realized, and contact and communication with these other intelligences are probably happening all the time. And so I'll turn it over to you, Beth, so that you can tell your story about what happened. It's pretty crazy.
Okay, so yeah, I had, I'm always, the spiritual stuff, the universe is so big. I'm always learning and growing, and you never, master any of this because, like I said, it's so big and everything's always changing. And, I try to learn as much as I can. So I decided to take this, it's called Trance Healing Mediumship course, to which you have to be far well into your practice as a psychic and medium to get to this point of meditation. So I took it with a teacher. Her name is Karen Francis, and she is from Ireland. And it was on Zoom because of the COVID and all that. And it was like an 8-week course. So she had taken the class. There's like 25 people in the Zoom class. So there's a lot of people in the class. And trance healing mediumship, it's um, it's kind of like Reiki, if you know what Reiki is. It's universal. It's healing from the universe that it comes through a practitioner's hand who is a Reiki master, and then the energy flows through your hand to the client, helps the client to help heal your own body on the cellular level. But trance healing mediumship is when you go into this deep meditation and you kind of like let ego aside and you higher your vibration for these beings of light, either they're spiritual guides or from wherever they're from. You allow them, as you higher your vibration, you kind of feel yourself come out of your body for these light beings to meet halfway. And what happens is a trance healer mediumship is you're just holding space for these beings to come and heal the person that you're doing the healing with, to help them heal. So she did it as a class because she couldn't do it one-on-one because there's too many people. But then afterwards, we broke off into groups of 3. But before she did that, she took us into this deep meditation, and she was pretty serious. She's like, "Okay, everybody has to have their camera on because sometimes on Zoom you turn your camera off and you sit there." But because she had to watch it because so somebody wouldn't fall over. That's how deep you get into this trance mediumship, and you have to be able to come out of it. So as she's taken us under, all of a sudden, and I was meeting these beams of light. This was the first time I did this. I saw myself as a little child, and I need some inner child healing, through my life, my childhood experiences. And there was like 4 or 5 of these little beings, and they were probably like, I don't know, 3 feet tall, and they looked like aliens. They had what's the other name for them?
The Grays?
The Grays. That's what they look like. But they were happy and they had this great smile, and they took my hand, and they took both hands, one's in front of me, one's behind me. And I see myself, I was a little child. I was probably about 6 years old. I had a dress on, and they were taking me. I was like, "Where are you taking me?" They're like, "Oh, we're taking you to get healed." And I was all happy and I wasn't afraid, and they were very friendly. And then the kind of like the teacher brought us out a little bit, but then we went, so we didn't really talk about the experience until the end. And then we broke off in these rooms of, it was 3 people. And we were still in this meditative state. And she was like, "Okay, so, as you're in this meditative state, think of the person that the 2 other people that you're sitting with, and just, hold space for them." So I saw this one being come down. And if you're say you're sitting in a chair, the being came over and had one hand on each of their shoulders and was going down their arms. And just like, how you would like touch somebody's shoulders, just rub down their arms with your hands and just like keep going in your back. And psychically, I knew that this person, somehow telepathically, and I knew psychically, this person had arthritis, and this being came to like make this person feel better or heal their arthritis. And then when it came time to do the second girl, this other being came down, and the being was rubbing the abdomen of the other person. Now they felt, I can't even explain what they really looked like, but they were just happy, and I could tell they kind of looked human but not human, and they weren't from Earth, but it was very hard to explain. But I never felt threatened. I was like happy and glad to see them. So then at the end, for a brief moment, I was able to asked the one lady, "Do you have arthritis?" And I told her what I saw, and she said, "Yes, I do have arthritis." And then the other lady said, "Yes, I do have." I told her what I saw, and she says, "Yes, I do have stomach issues." And we really couldn't discuss it at the end because it was a big, large class. And then they brought us back to the Zoom class, and then we continued with the class, so we didn't have time to go over it as much. But I was able to tell those two women what I saw and what I went through. I could not finish the class. I was just so blown away about what I experienced. I was like, I've never experienced this ever before, like never. So it's pretty fascinating for me
Yeah,
to
and you've
experience this.
and you've been
So here's the thing I just thought of, and I didn't think of it when we were at the round table. And that was like May or June, May. And now, ever since, I feel like my inner child's been healed because I had low self confidence and low esteem, and my mom making fun of me my whole life. Well, here I am mobbed with clients, and it's mostly Reiki. People need healing. I had the house cleansing. I've had people just like in depression, crying, like all the readings, like all this kind of work that the healing needs to be done. And it's just like, I don't know. It's pretty amazing, I think, you know.
and you've been doing mediumship for many years. I mean, how long have you
Uh
been doing it? And you've
10 years, like, but full time I since 2016.
yeah, like full time. Yeah.
So 6 years full time. Yeah.
Okay. So that's significant for you to say like that I've never had an
I've
experience
never
like that,
experienced
because I
that.
know the
Mm-mm.
extent that you have been almost continuously taking classes both
Yeah.
here from
Uh,
people overseas in North Jersey, South
yeah.
Jersey, like all over
I
the
want to
place.
learn as much as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my story.
Yeah, and so shortly after this class and her experience, Beth and I are on our way to Gettysburg, and we get in the car, we pack up everything, and we're driving, and she starts just telling me about this experience. Because I'd known she'd taken the class, but I hadn't heard any of this stuff yet. So she starts telling me these beings show up, and she starts getting into detail about these beings, and they came down, and she started describing them. And at that same exact instant, the GPS in my car went completely nuts, almost until it just all of a sudden asked me to like take a left turn straight into a brick wall on the highway. It
Yeah.
went completely bonkers, lost like the whole route where we were going.
Hmm.
Um, Everything just went crazy. My phone went nuts. I actually had to pull over, get off the highway, and like turn the car off, turn the phone off, turn GPS, everything off, and reboot everything to get it working again. And then I said, like, listen, let's not talk about this right now because like, I don't know. It seems I just have the impression this is like affecting like the electronics and everything is going bananas. I'm like, let's talk about this later. And so we made the decision and like, okay, I'm not going to tell the story right now. Rebooted everything and we're on our way. And everything from that point on was fine. But it's just odd how she just started telling me about this. And my whole entire, the car, GPS, phone, everything
The
went
whole weekend was weird.
crazy. And it just, yeah, and the whole weekend was just kind of off and very strange. So, yeah.
What else happened that weekend? Can you tell? Is there anything you feel comfortable telling us that was weird?
Well, we went to phenomenology, and it was paranormal event, and it was a 3 day event. It was weird because I didn't get one reading. Mike had some weird attachment or something happened to him because he was we went to the party, the VIP party, and all of a sudden he disappeared. He got up. I couldn't find him. He disappeared and went in his room, and he was like mad, and then he was cursing, and then all of a sudden he started crying, and he was going to leave, and he was packing his stuff up, and then he ended up on the floor crying. I didn't. Yeah, we didn't tell anybody that part. And then he just went to bed, and then he didn't remember the next day. So I don't know what the hell. Besides that,
Holy,
it was a
holy moly.
weird. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
no,
was a weird weekend.
That, wow.
it was like I got roofied. I mean, it
Oh,
was
Holy cow.
I
That's
was
how he felt.
I was
Yeah.
there 1 minute, and then the person that we were hanging out with said, like, she was like, I was looking at you like you were crazy because you were like maniacally laughing all of a sudden,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you were just gone, and I had all this missing time. I don't remember like getting up
Right.
and leaving, but I remember just walking around the hotel, and then I remember I remember being back in the room,
Yeah.
and then just like little vague little scenes, like quick snippets of the night, but not
Well, and that one girl we were with, she does theater healing,
theta.
theta healing,
Yeah.
and as she's like, well, let me try this, and so she was doing that on Mike before we left, and she said he had something like attached to him, and she got it off of him. So, oh yeah, we forgot to tell that part, but
Yeah.
yeah, so it was just a off weekend after that.
It was.
Well, I didn't want to go before that happened, so
Yeah, you had bad feelings about going
yeah.
like weeks before we even left,
Mm,
which is
yeah,
not
Oh,
surprising.
man.
But yeah, it was just very, very insane.
yeah.
Wow.
I don't think one had to do with the other though, because this was in May. I took the class, and we didn't go. We went to Phenom in June, wasn't it? July, June.
Yeah, I think you telling the story definitely had an effect on
Yeah, on the way there. Yeah,
on the GPS and all that stuff because we've experienced that
maybe
before.
Maybe I wasn't supposed to tell this story. That's why you had
Yeah,
all this weird stuff. It was personal,
Maybe.
That's happened before. Yeah, I think I remember you guys talking about stuff like that happened before with the GPS going wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was when we were investigating the Stonehenge incidents in North Bergen,
Yes.
and we reached the same point that George Abarsky had his radio go bonkers on him in the exact same spot. Our GPS and radio and everything went bonkers. The exact same spot. And I got out of the car and got out. I got a bunch of meters out and took a bunch of readings all up and down the street, all around the whole area, and nothing anomalous showed up. But I don't know. So what was your impression about that occasion? You said that was just them kind of saying, like,
Which one?
in North Jersey when we were up there. You had said something to the effect like, "Oh, they're just letting us know they noticed we're here," or something like that.
Oh, they know we're coming before we do. Yeah, absolutely. I just think we're not supposed to know everything. We're not supposed to figure everything out.
Yeah,
and people have to be okay with that.
Yeah, and the precognitive thing that you mentioned earlier,
Drive yourself
Justin,
nuts.
and we have definitely experienced that on investigations where we have picked up EVPs saying or addressing something that we're about to say or do, but haven't done yet or said yet.
Yeah.
So, and again, are these spirits just? Is there any difference between a ghost and an alien and a cryptid, or any of this? Is there any difference between any of these things? They're here one second, gone the next. They seem to be more alike each other than.
I don't know. You just don't know.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Crazy. But
kind of one thing that, like, along the lines of this, weirdness happening and your GPS malfunctioning and the radio going off and all that, like that's something that's typically reported with UFO encounters. And one thing that I thought was interesting that was in that report that that Chris Mellon posted on Twitter that we were talking about earlier about the Tic Tac incident. There's one section where it says they had these jets that were brand new. They had less than 100 hours on them, and they were working perfectly. There were no mission computer issues or avionics issues, and that there was no radio or communication interference. Now, that was during the Tic Tac incident, which kind of interesting because usually that stuff happens. So can they control that? Like I always wondered if it was just something where kind of like the two realms were meeting. And that's why that stuff happens, But is that something that they can control? I don't know.
I think that happens a lot. The two realms meet, and that's when you feel weird and things go crazy and off. Yeah. I think it's getting thinner and thinner. That's what I feel like it. That's why a lot of people are off or acting weird, or a lot of people are cranky. Yeah.
Wow. There could be a lot to this, that we're just not there yet to ask the questions, right?
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you guys this, on this whole UAP subject, because obviously we live in a bubble, right? As researchers and investigators and those who are just interested in this and living and breathing what's being put out there on this topic all the time. Um, we have a little bit more understanding of this, more of a firmer grasp on it, or at least I would like to believe that. But
Yeah.
then there's everybody else, right? And in your interactions with everybody else, the quote unquote normal people, um, how do you interact with them? How do you broach this topic, right? Like, how do you
when we go
talk with them about it?
when we go into a private dwelling.
Well,
Uh,
no, I mean, like, just like around the water cooler, where somebody
Yeah.
talks about or brings this
yeah.
up the subject, right? Where they're like, "Hey, did you hear about that UAP report? Pretty wild stuff." Like, what are some of the vibes that you get from these individuals? How do they
9 out of
process
10
it?
times for me. 9 out of 10 times, it's just dropped. There's no, there's no. It's kind of like I don't know, like when you text someone and they don't answer you. Like it's like that kind of thing. Like you'll be oh yeah, yeah, oh, what'd you do this weekend? Oh no, no, oh yeah, oh that was great. Oh, then we did this. Oh yeah, did you guys hear the UAP report? or they'll
Silent.
just or they'll be
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
oh, UAP, what's that? And you're like, oh, it's the new term for UFO. Oh, yeah, so I'm gonna go back to my well, not to like immediately break it up, but that's
Yeah.
usually the response that I get. Or you get stuff where the people are like, well, maybe not. So like recently, I went to a birthday party and this topic didn't come up at all, and then because it's not something that even though it's more comfortable now for us to talk about it, it's still not something you're just like,
Yeah.
hey, so that new UFO, what do you guys think about UFO? It's still kind of like a little
Yeah.
weird to bring up. So I went to this party. The only person I knew was the birthday girl. Didn't know anyone else there. And I met these people. It was a great time. And then afterward, I was texting with my friend, the birthday girl, and I told her that we were doing this tonight. And she's like, "Oh my god, my boyfriend and the other girl that was there—they're totally into this." And I was like, "Oh man."
Why didn't they say something?
Yeah, like it's just not a topic that you just go around talking about. But like,
Yeah.
look at that. Like, there were two people in a room of 12 people that also were interested, like very interested in the topic, but it didn't come up. It's just not something that you usually just go around
Yeah,
bringing up.
I don't talk about it unless it's in our paranormal group or our roundtable because I'm actually working at a friend's deli. It's called Lou and Ann's Deli in Cherry Hill. I'm helping out a couple days for the summer, and I say they're like, "Oh, what are you doing this weekend? Or what are you doing tonight?" And they're like old school Catholic, and the one guy he's older, and he's like, "There's no such thing. There's no such thing as
Yeah.
paranormal or spirit. There's no psychics or mediums. There's no such thing." I'm like, okay. So don't ask what I'm doing then. So there's certain people you can just open up and talk about it, and then there's people that you can't. Like when we go to private homes and do the investigations, we're kind of like we talk. We're like put on our baby gloves because we don't know how much they're into it or how much they want to understand. Or so when you start talking to them, then you get a feel for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like we're not going to go in there and scare them, scare the pants off them, and we're not going to, we're going to make sure they're comfortable with their house. So make them help them to deal with what's there and what's not there. But.
Yeah, I was surprised actually. We were recently at a private case in Cape May, and the clients almost brought it up like right away, like
Yeah.
immediately started saying like the topic of aliens came up just in passing, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we've seen tons of stuff here, real weird stuff we can't explain," and then they brought up Bigfoot, like, "Yeah, there's Bigfoots around, there's full families of them." And we're like, "Okay." Like, and this is a family that was experiencing hauntings and all that kind of stuff, and so
And then there's other stuff to talk about. Can't do it 24/7.
right.
Well,
Anyway.
yeah, I mean, it's just interesting. That's why I asked the question because it seems like there are people interested in this topic.
Yeah.
Obviously, the people listening to your broadcast right now. Then there's
All
people
over the
who
world.
just then there's people who just don't seem to care or just don't know how to quite deal with it. I mean,
Yeah.
here we have essentially the U.S. government coming forward and saying, "Hey, everybody, there's something here. We don't have enough information to say that it's aliens, but we don't have enough information to say it's not aliens. We don't have enough information to say what it is. We don't have enough information to say what it isn't. We just know that there's something here And a lot of our service members, our service people rather, have experienced this for this period of time that they studied this, 2004, I believe, to 2021. That's all we have right now.
Yeah.
And there's more to come. There's a lot of aspects of this program that have not been revealed yet. Like I mentioned, ALSAP, that hasn't really been talked about yet. Yeah. That's the larger program that I want to know about, because that looked at places like Skinwalker Ranch, this paranormal hot spot where all of the phenomena seems to manifest and exhibit things that we can't easily describe, let alone define. There's more to
including
this.
precognitive stuff.
You got it. Yep. Yeah. This is a multifaceted, multi-layered thing that's taking place in our existence right now, in reality. And stay tuned. Let's see where it goes from here.
Exactly.
But we're living in exciting times.
Yeah, the Skinwalker is a great example, because it really kind of proves our point that all this stuff is connected, because they're the ones that experience UFOs, poltergeist activity, Bigfoot, some kind of cryptids, dogmen, UFOs, orbs, cattle mutilations, animal disappearances. It's just, the list goes on and on and on. And it all happened right there, and it was all seemingly connected somehow.
And it's still happening today.
Yeah.
But one of the things that tends to be really interesting, one of the patterns, is it's a cyclical phenomenon. It'll have periods of a lot of activity, periods of no activity. Could it be that there's more to this than I think we can even study with our own human instrumentation or scientific instrumentation, right? Like, there are aspects of this that could be taking place that we just don't know how to tackle. And yet we're looking for answers. We're not even there yet. And like I mentioned earlier, we're not even at the point where we can ask the right questions. We are in a data collection point in time. And I think that's all we can do.
Yeah, 100%.
Ooh, along these lines, what we're just talking about people, what do the other people think about this thing? Kind of weird. So I've been studying my dreams and stuff lately, and I started a dream journal, and there's a whole story behind that. But I've had this guy that I used to talk to on a daily basis. I don't really talk to him much anymore. He has appeared in my dreams, and like 2 in a row. And I was like, why is this guy showing up in my dreams, right? So in this book that I've been reading, it's saying that there's a reason for that. So I reached out to him today and just like, hey, just, you've been in my dreams lately, so I just wanted to check in and see, how you're doing. And he's like, Jamie, you have come up, I've thought about you, how do you say, something like 5 times in the last week, because I've been watching this show about the paranormal. And I was like, oh, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, and I don't remember discussing paranormal stuff with him, but apparently I did, because he remembered that. And then he starts asking me stuff about Skinwalker, and we start going all back and forth about it. And he's like, what do you think about this UAP stuff? And I was like, actually, I'm going to be on this podcast about it tonight. So it was just so funny.
Wow. Yeah.
But yeah, he appeared in my dreams, and I've appeared in his thoughts for the same kind of, I guess you can consider dreams paranormal in a way. It's all part of the same kind of idea, I think.
Sure.
Like consciousness. So it kind of strange though, but he's someone that I honestly don't remember having conversations. I mean, he's like a work colleague guy. I don't ever remember having in deep conversations about this stuff. And I wish I would have known that, because I would have had deeper conversations with him about this stuff. So I just think it's weird that he appeared in my dreams.
Yeah.
I bring it up to him. He's like, oh yeah, I've been thinking about you too. And I don't know, but we just kind of dropped off from there. But yeah, just wanted to mention that.
Another one of Jamie's damn synchronicities. Put it in the book.
Yeah. I know, right? Kind of. Yeah, that's partially why I've been doing this dream stuff too, to try to get closer, learn more about my dreams. For a period I had that just like Justin was saying, cyclical. Same things with the dreams. I've had these periods where I've had intense, vivid dreams, lucid dreams and stuff, and I love those experiences. And then they just kind of stopped, and I went from that to like not being able to remember my dreams. And I'm waking up in the morning like, what is going on? Why am I not able to? So I've made some lifestyle changes. Like this book that I've been reading is recommended to try to help with that. And also it's taking notes from the book saying like, it's like, get a dream, start writing down your dreams. And it tells you like how to write them down and all this stuff. And oh my goodness, it works.
Oh,
It worked
really?
from the
Cool.
Yeah. I got a book that Justin actually gave me a bunch of, when Justin was moving, he was going through his stuff and trying to, get rid of things that he didn't need anymore. And he had a whole collection of books, like empty notebooks and things. And I saved all of them. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to use these for something. And there's this one that I really liked. I was like, you know what? I'm going to turn this into my dream journal. And I followed what the book told me what to do. And I've been doing it consecutively now every night. And it works. It works. I've been recalling my dreams and writing down all the details and stuff. And
I would like to get that book.
I'll send you a link. It's
yeah.
It's awesome. And the book itself is actually really nice. The paper is really nice, which makes a big difference.
Yeah.
It feels nice. I'm laying in bed reading the book, the paper's real smooth. And just like the
yeah.
The way that they approach this book, because the last book that I was reading on dreams was my favorite book about dreams. And then I found this one, and now this one's my favorite book. So it's really good.
Yeah, I dream like constantly, but I don't remember them. But I would like to remember because I dream like it's like the whole night, but
yeah,
I need to remember them because I know there's something in there that I need to know.
Yes, exactly.
And to tie it into what we're talking about is there's tons of reports of people having these experiences, abduction experiences specifically, during this sort of in between state of half asleep, half awake.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of meditations and yoga that go into visualization and flexing that muscle of recall and kind of connecting your conscious mind to your unconscious mind. And there's a lot of people in the UFO field who are beginning to make this connection. Grant Cameron's one of them, tying this phenomena to consciousness itself, and how the consciousness itself plays a huge role in either witnessing the phenomena, causing the phenomena, or interacting with it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's super interesting. There may be a book coming on the subject.
I've had extremely vivid dreams of people in large groups outside watching a UFO air show in the sky. I've had this happen several times.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd be like, one off, okay, and I'm trying to make that happen again. But I'm trying to train myself to become lucid, and so that when that happens, I can snap into my consciousness and do something about it. I don't know what, but that's what I'm trying to do. Of course, I'm only telling you guys and everyone that's listening to this podcast now.
Yeah.
I've had several dreams, or just I'm talking like big crowds of people outside, and it's not necessarily nighttime and not daytime. It's like in between, and everyone's looking up at the sky, and they're not attacking us, but they're doing like almost like a Blue Angels air show, and everyone's just looking up like, what is happening? And it's happened a bunch of times. So I'm trying to see if I can make that happen again. And again, I'm repeating myself, but and like make the snap over to become conscious and then take it from there.
Wow, yeah.
All right, so just everyone listening, make note of this. If Jamie disappears in the next coming months, we'll know he became lucid and he joined the airship.
He joined the airship. I mean, that's the goal. That's the goal. Coors Light is trying to advertise in people's dreams now. What? Come on, man. I listened to this on a podcast today that Coors Light did something where you had to voluntarily do it, and I didn't. They only talked about it, and I was working while I was listening, so I only was like half listening. But something about like you agree to do this, and then they tell you this stuff to do, and it's probably the same kind of things I'm reading in these dream books that tell you like little practices and things to do to carry over into the dream state. But apparently, you do this, and then they can I don't know how exactly it works, but then, like, now they're going to be advertising to you in your dreams. Come on, man. As if Google
Sounds
Glass
like
isn't
they're
enough,
getting
now they're going to get in your head.
hypnotized. It sounds like, because then
Yes.
they must give you a keyword that when you're to get to that state, and then because they get to your subconscious, so they're giving you a keyword as you're getting this meditative state that you'll remember.
So we can't even sleep without freaking commercials now.
No,
I know.
it's in your head.
Yeah.
Oh my
Fascinating and terrifying and terrible at the same time.
Yes.
1,000%. 1,000%. Yeah, that could be alien technology. Who knows?
Who
Well,
knows, right?
it's funny how we tend to experiment with things that we don't even know how they work.
Yeah.
Which I guess it can be very beneficial, because that's how you make progress, right? Fortune favors the bold, so why not do experiments with this? But where it can lead, we may not be pleased with the answers, especially if it goes against what we thought we knew. I kind of want to leave you guys with this quote. I was rewatching the original Men in Black movies, right? And just for entertainment purposes. And in the first Men in Black movie, um, Agent K, played by Tommy Lee Jones, he put it best about knowing when he gave Agent J's character, played by Will Smith, the opportunity to be recruited to save the world. He said, 15,000 years or 1,500 years ago, everybody knew that the Earth was the center of the universe. 500 years ago, everybody knew that the Earth was flat. And 15 minutes ago, you knew that humans were alone on this planet. So just something to think about. I'm excited to see what else we think we know, only to find out that we didn't know anything.
Oh, yeah.
100%. I think that's a perfect place to end it right there.
Yes, thank you.
How appropriate, Justin, to leave us with that while we use the app called Zencaster.
True. Oh, man. Well, this has been awesome. I want to thank you guys for joining us. We could go on and on and on,
Yes.
but yeah, we gotta put an end to it here soon. So, fascinating topic. I think we have our takes on it, and I think at the end of the day, we have taken a step forward. And I hope, like you had said earlier, Jamie, that some of the other classified pages get leaked, and we get more and more information. I think that will happen eventually, hopefully sooner than later. But either way, just stay tuned. Stuff is getting dropped all the time. More people are coming forward every day. Every day is a new weird adventure.
Yes.
Especially here.
Thank you, guys.
In the bunker.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.
And look for us next time in the bunker.